administrative folks, we're glad that you're here. Welcome to the members of this budget committee and those that are participating via Zoom. Again, we'll be recording this meeting and it'll be made available in 48 business hours. And any questions you might have, we can address them at that time. We'll go ahead and begin. Russell, will you call the roll, please?
Evelyn Hill.
Here.
Scott Mast.
Here.
Freddie Phipps.
Here.
Rick Snyder.
Here.
Mike Taylor.
Here. All present. We'll go ahead and begin to work on this agenda. The first thing is to approve the meeting minutes from a previous meeting. And you have those in your packet that Russell passed out. We'll take a look at those. I'll entertain a motion to accept it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Freddie Phipps. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Evelyn Hill. Is there any questions or discussions pertaining to these minutes? Hearing none, call the roll, please, Russell.
Evelyn Hill.
Yes.
Scott Mast.
Yes.
Freddie Phipps.
Yes.
Rick Snyder.
Yes.
Mike Taylor.
Yes. All yes, motion carried. Russell, we will go ahead at this time, turn the presentation of budgets over to you, and I think we have.
We'll turn it over to the school system. So.
Okay, in front of you, Tina gave you a packet of information with little highlights on the front. We are bringing you a balanced budget, so we're not asking for any dollars. If you can see in our little highlights in this budget, which is balanced, does include a one-time $500 bonus for all non-certified general purpose employees, and that's in the amount of $75,240. It also includes a 3% pay increase for all certified employees in the amount of $265,612.02, and a 3% increase for all general purpose non-certified employees in the amount of $73,994.43. There is a 2% medical insurance increase which begins in January, which is $72.44 increase for single policy. And there is a decrease in certified employee state retirement rate, which went from 10.63% to 10.27%. So that's shown in this budget as well. For revenue, this budget does include BEP dollars in the amount of $13,480,000. This is an increase in last year of $135,000. That is from the April estimate. Our July estimate is our final estimate that we get when it comes to BEP dollars. So this is what they're showing us right now. And estimated property tax of $2.5 million is in there, which is an increase as you all know. Any questions on that?
2% medical insurance increase. 7244. Is that a month or a year?
That's total policy.
So that's
Yes.
Is that passed along to the employees or?
No.
Yeah,
It is not.
absorbing that.
The board elected to pay that increase.
Do y'all have an update on the budget and any cuts that they've made in the work they're doing this past week and this week in the budget? It appears that they've cut out all the raises for their state employees, and did that not?
They are working on that. I'm actually on the
Change your
BEP
number.
advisory committee for the state.
Yeah.
I'm very honored to be on that committee. They are actually working on that right now, because the governor had at first said 4% increase and then took it down to 2%, and they're looking at cutting that out, but there's not been anything just set in stone that that's going to be cut out. I have a meeting next week and they're going to be talking about that. So that may decrease our BEP dollars just a little bit, but we still are okay with our 3% increase.
On the something I got today from, I don't know who it came from, Tina, or it was an update. It looked like a quarterly report, but we don't have quarterly reports till next month. But it says the SRO grant will open on June 1st and Safe Schools grant will open in mid-June. And we'll begin work on these funded sources and complete the applications quickly as possible. Probably at the end of this conversation this evening, you're going to hear that we're going to have to talk very seriously about having a tax increase for the people of Johnson County. In that tax increase that we're probably talking about, $48,000 of it is SRO money. That is about $0.015 on the tax rate. We were even aware that this group wasn't even aware that we were having the SRO conversation, 11 months ago or however long ago that happened. We were not involved in the conversation at the time when the county got obligated for $48,000. And I'm just concerned about that. It says that I know nothing about this grant, whether it is an ongoing grant or it is like My Ride that is good for 3 years. So I would really like to have some information, I think this group would, about this grant, about if we raise taxes to include $0.015, to include the $48,000 that we were obligated without our even knowing of it. Does that mean if they stop this grant, we're going to be obligated for 200 and what's the other part of the?
230 some
I mean,
thousand.
do you know how long this grant is good for, or
Angie's working on the grant right now.
is there an administrative portion to that grant? Do you know how much it is?
I haven't seen the new grant. I can have her come in. She's here. She can answer that question.
Am I the only one that has questions about that? I'm just concerned about that. If we keep 6 sheriff's officers,
It's a
SRO
big
officers,
chunk of money to be committed.
yeah, that we didn't even know about really. All I knew about the grant is when it came out in the newspaper. Y'all were, that we're going to put it. I'm not against having SRO officers in the school system. I think it's a great program. I think I just had questions about how we became obligated for $48,000 without, knowing ahead of time that was coming our way, and it could potentially, I feel like, drop into our laps $250,000 more dollars if it goes away. So I'm concerned about that grant. What the, is it some of these grants are,
And we did
for
work
1
with,
year
we
or
worked
2
with
years?
Eddie on that grant. Eddie was very involved in that original grant.
the other one too it mentioned was safe schools.
Yeah, Angie has
what-
safe schools as well.
What does that one do?
It funds a lot of our cameras, our
Oh, okay.
walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
It doesn't really include personnel. It's more, the security officers, clothing, cameras, the door systems, the badge readers.
What's the number?
It's
on
anything
that
like
SRO
that
unit?
that's dealing
I don't know.
with safety.
Rick had a question.
How
What's
much is the SR is possible, or, I mean, I guess you don't know till you apply, but how much do you think that grant would be worth for the SRO grant?
Last year, they paid for 7, they had one at every school. Of course, this year, we don't have 7 schools, so we have 6. And now, like I said, Angie's working on it right now, so it's an allocated amount that they give us, and we work based on that. The only true SRO we have is, I'm thinking, is Michael Murphy, correct, Russell?
Yes.
Yes, the rest of them are paid through.
so we don't really know
Well,
if that money's going to be more.
Mark is paid through your budget and half of Michael.
Half
So
Michael.
what's the 48,000 by that we are obligated to?
Here's Angie, she can.
We just have some questions about the SRO grant. When the thing originally came about, and Rick had a question about that too, last year sometime, we didn't even know, the budget committee, and our understanding was when it came that it was going to be pretty much the grant itself would cover all of the SRO officers. Then, we had a conversation there near the end of, it's been several months ago now, that at the end of school, the county would have to pick those officers up till, the end of June 31, or June 30, I mean.
That was not,
And we were able to work that out, and
Right, I
it
mean,
didn't
that-
cost the county
we-
any money.
that was never the intention. Like, they can be with us all year, and the grant covered that. Like, they can patrol the buildings, like, that should have never been an issue. I don't know why it was.
Well, the reason it became an issue is that, and I was telling these folks at the end of this conversation tonight, we're probably going to have to decide about raising taxes on county property, and that $48,000 that we've been told we're going to have to put in is about $0.015 on the tax rate. So if we have to pay from end of school next year to the end of June, is that where you're telling me?
No,
that-
actually, we're covering the month of
Well,
July.
they're telling us, our understanding was we had to pick them up because school was out of session.
Yeah, that's what we were told, that, and
It's
it's,
not true.
and
They
it's,
can work for us as long as they patrol our facilities. I mean.
Why can't they do other calls for the sheriff's department?
We've talked to the sheriff about that. We're not being a stickler on that. They just need, all we've asked is that they do patrol the school buildings and that they go by at different times. We don't want people to know when they're coming. We
Right.
want that to be a surprise.
Other than
As long
during the
as-
school year.
Right,
Full
right.
school year.
But during, when there's no school, it's better for them not to be there consistently. They also, we still need them to do home visits from time to time, you know. So they're with us to do those things, like if there's a situation with the summer school, special ed, anything like that that we need, I mean, they would work for us anyhow. So I don't know why that has, we had already, I thought, had worked all that out.
Where did that information come to us from?
Well,
Eddie is
When
under the
Russell had-
impression that the month of July, which will be the
Uh-huh.
next, when we start the next fiscal year, that the county was responsible for those officers, for that period of time.
I've already wrote the grant.
Yeah,
I've already submitted it.
how
It's not
much
been
is-
approved to me.
How much is the grant, Andrew?
It's $35,000 per officer. As long as their salary and benefits doesn't go above the $35,000, it shouldn't cost the county any money.
So.
Have you based, would that cover one for the whole year? Is that what that's
They have
supposed to
said that
do?
it would. When I talked to him last year about doing
Okay.
the officer grant,
I may have misunderstood, but my take on this, I thought it was because it's the schools that closed because of the coronavirus.
they still work.
They
for us.
still work every
What
day.
we were told is.
Yeah, I
remember
thought
the
it was
conversation?
just when school was out of
I know.
session. Just
And
what I,
remember they said that we had to cover them on snow days,
You do Mark.
and we had to cover them on summer break. But that was our question. The reason we had concern, Angie, is that these grants are sometimes year by year, and, you know, sometimes like the MyRide grant is 3 years, and these grants have different times attached to them. What we were concerned about is if we obligate the county for $48,000 for this grant that might not be available next year, there's no way that we can pick up the other $240,000. So that was our concern about the longevity of this grant, and, you know,
it's
this,
not like the state's never pulled funding from us before, you know?
Exactly.
Right. I can't guarantee, but I mean, if the state were to pull that funding, like, I would hate for anybody to lose their position, but I think at that point, we would just, we would have to cut that program. I mean, you know, there would be, I know that's not a popular decision for the county, but I mean, I don't think that, I can't imagine that most of the
couldn't- we
county,
could- we
we
could not
could
sustain
do it, and I don't think that people would expect the county to come up with $200,000 that
Yeah.
they were not.
so my question then is, if we're paying $48,000 of this,
And
and you're
she-
saying that you have
She
enough
just gave
per
a
officer
piece that
to do it,
makes that 48 seem a little more reasonable. $35,000 per officer that does not cover an officer's cost. That will basically cover salary and insurance benefits. That doesn't cover any of the other related costs, the Social Security, the Medicare, the employer match with the TCRS. So that number will not cover an officer's cost based on the numbers that we're currently using. So part of that 48,000 is the difference on those 7 officers that the county is picking up, plus the fact that Eddie plans to use those officers the month of July.
well, that's $6,800 more per officer, that's making $35,000.
See, plus you got to factor in,
Yeah.
the fact that Michael Murphy is a 50-50 split. So there's still 50% of Michael that has to be picked up the month of July as well. Plus the county is picking up 100% of Mark Ladden because he is only covered under the original old agreement when school is in session.
So you don't think this, well, that's his salary and insurance, so.
That doesn't cover everything. That barely covers salary and insurance.
What hourly is the 35, what are you looking at?
An officer's
13?
cost, an officer's starting salary that is certified is $13.10.
Angie had a,
Yeah, I think Angie's
I've
got
got
an
two things.
explanation about this money.
First of all, like, the grant is open. I just completed the grant last week. It opened last Monday. I submitted it Tuesday. I went ahead this year because I know that everybody's budget's tight, and including ours and yours. I don't know that they'll approve it, but we have always, the school system has always paid for Mark Gladden's position, the original SRO position. I left that alone. I went ahead this year and I applied for 6 SRO, 5 SROs. That's what we had last year out of the grant. Because we had Mark, the school system and the county paid for one of them, we split it. And then we had the grant covered 5 officers. Well, with Shady closing, I went ahead and reapplied for 5 officers for this year. If the state will pay for 5 officers, we'll let them pay for it. And that would save the county and the school system the money for that one that we're splitting. Again, I haven't got approval on that grant, but I did write it for 5 SROs, just like we've been doing. We would pay for Mark just like we've been doing. So that could possibly be a savings to the county, but I can't guarantee that until they approve it. The other thing that I don't really understand is like, that Russell should be billing us at least quarterly, and we should be drawing the money down. There is a ton of money left for this year. I don't really know why that there is a concern about not having enough money to pay for the officers' salaries for this year, because the money is sitting there, and we've not been billed for it. And I've already talked to Eddie about that, that as long as they are meeting our needs, we're not gonna be a stickler about if they're doing a little something else.
And there's
on
no
the side.
expectation that we have that they would pick up any money, $48,000 or otherwise.
No, so I don't understand.
And the answer to your
why.
question, you've been billed for the officer's cost through the end of April. We like May and June. But keep in mind that these officers came on at staggered times. And therefore, we have some officers have only been on payroll for us as an SRO since December. So there is going to be a large chunk of that money's not going to be used this year. I mean, plain and simple.
But where does the 48,000 come in? Because our understanding was we paid for this entire program.
The 48 comes in if you're using $35,000 as an officer's cost. $35,000 will not cover the county's cost for that officer.
Is
It
that-
takes more than
Is that what's
$35,000.
allowable by the state per officer, or where does that?
Yes, that's the
Okay.
max that we
So
can
therefore,
apply.
we're naturally automatically picking up a difference
But
that
we
has to be
didn't set
covered.
the salary for those officers. So I think what you really need to know is you need a list of the officers and what their salaries are and the breakdown of their benefits. Because we don't have access to that.
Well, that's an additional $6,300 or more per officer. If you're looking at, that's spending $48,000. I think they get 1310, is that what you said?
1310 is the current starting salary,
But if I hear you right, Angie, we could send you a bill for the rest of that money and we'll get paid for it.
I mean, there's no reason that why we wouldn't. That money is sitting there at state funds. I mean, we should take every time that they're willing to provide for us.
Whenever we first found out about the expenses that have to come out of county general, I called John Lomberg and I told him, I said, how'd this happen? How'd we get this gift that cost us this money? We didn't even know it. And it hit county general and he still hadn't come back to anything.
But
And why did it
Yeah,
go
that's where-
through education? Well, I don't know why he didn't call me back and say, hey, you're full of bugs. It didn't cost you anything. So, I mean, I don't know why I can't get an answer from anybody down there.
So if we can get this resolved, are we looking at bringing that raising tax down $0.015 if what they have will cover it?
But what they have will not cover
Won't
the
cover,
full officer's
okay.
cost. If the $35,000 would cover the officer's cost,
We're
then
good.
it's well and good. But we're looking at more like $42,000 to cover an officer's cost with insurance.
But the safe schools money, would that figure into any of the,
So they got one.
you said there was equipment and
There is. That's a totally separate
So-
grant.
is it possible that that safe schools money could cover like uniforms and some of the equipment for the officers, or is that just?
No, because there has to be a match. There has to be a local match. And so that's what we use as the local match, is the uniforms and
And
things
the
like
equipment
that.
that they provide.
The outfitting, the cars, and the uniforms are part of the match. What we bill for direct, and actually, like for instance, I just paid a $6,800 bill for 2 of the SROs to go through school, through the academy, that they're starting the academy.
They put it out of the 35,000 for this year,
Now,
because
Matt,
that is a cost related to that officer.
Is that, and that's
we
what
can
we
bill
have
for
to pay
that.
certain.
so last year, did you write for 6, and this year you're writing for 5,
Last year I wrote for 5.
and this year 5?
Yes,
Okay,
because
it'd be less
we
dangerous
pay
to be
for
working
more.
at
Right.
school.
Mhm.
The
than
county
down.
split one,
Yeah.
that left 5.
Yeah.
Shady closed, so I went ahead and wrote for 5.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Is there a reason why we can't, mark that we're splitting? Is there a reason why we can't use his figures in with the grant and apply for 6?
we only have,
Still don't have
there
that.
was a stipulation last year that if you were already
Already employed.
employed, like if you already had
Okay.
an officer in your county, in your school system budget, that you couldn't supplant that.
So they have to be hired on basically for that job.
Right.
Yes, that was
Mark was
like
already
extra.
with us, so we could not.
Okay.
And he is on the hill, right, like the high
And
school?
Well, currently, he's been rotating around to every school because,
Floater.
yeah, but normally he is.
And the other thing, as far as I'm concerned, where the positions have been staggered, we don't, or where people come in at separate times, I don't know why the position that costs the least amount of money for this year, the SRO that costs the least amount of money, that wouldn't be the one that the county and the school system divided to save you that money. And then the other 5 that were the most expensive, that that's what we draw down. I mean, that just makes sense to me that that's what we would do.
Well, this 42,000, of course, we're looking at is next year's budget.
Yes, that's
Yes.
what we're looking
So-
at. I think we're good for this, and we've had this conversation.
We're good,
and we
we're
were
good
able-
till June 30th.
Okay. And I guess the reason it would be coming up next year is because your answer that 35 will not
Yes.
cover it.
That sounds like the
That
answer.
answers your question as to why that money is sitting there. We're looking at next year, if all the positions are filled full-time, then there won't be enough money, and that's where that $40,000 comes in.
But how long
If
is your
we're-
money
if we're-
for? What,
A year,
but I
July
mean, what-
1 to June 30th of next year. But if they do award us the full 5 officers, the county is gonna have a savings on that officer that we're splitting.
And they've pretty much been insistent that they want us to have one per school.
Yeah.
Last year, they wanted us to have one in Shady, even though
Yeah.
there weren't many kids at Shady, but they wanted us to have the one in Shady and have that in there. So they've been pretty insistent for us to
The-
have
the-
one per school.
I think my concern was adding a penny and a half to the tax rate, but then, should this grant go away, or they not fund it, or maybe should you get confirmation back, we're going to do 3, we're not going to do 5, we're just going to allow you 3. That gap, I think that's what kind of had me concerned about it, so.
I do understand your concern, and with the information that was at the header of the grant, they said that the the Tennessee General Assembly, before they went in, took a break for COVID or whatever, that they did set aside the funding for school safety. And so apparently that is
I think that's
supposed to be.
Yeah, and I've heard nothing that will be dropped at all.
And honestly, Rita Morris, who approves our application, she's typically super quick. Last year, I think I submitted, and within a week, we were approved. I don't anticipate that we're gonna have a long time before we know. I mean, but with everything that's going on, it might be a little bit longer, but I feel like we'll know pretty quickly.
And I think our understanding on board was that if we didn't have a grant, that they would go away.
Right. I mean,
And we would go back to what we did, which was having them circulate. Like if we just had Mark and the other officer, they circulate the schools. I mean, depending on what everybody wanted, if this grant was approved for just 3 officers, we just had 3.
Yeah.
Or if this grant was to go away, we would go back to what we did before and be without.
it was never.
So I don't think it obligates, our understanding of the board is it wouldn't obligate you to anything at that point.
That makes me wonder why we can't do something even if it's a technicality, to get Mark paid for, because, I mean, I don't see, and I get it, I get what they're saying, but I mean, that's his job. I mean,
I can't
What-
apply for more officers than they approved last year.
right, but what I'm saying is, what if you hired another one on? What if Mark was no longer a school resource officer and you hired another one? Would then that new one be, would it be eligible for the grant?
This was based on, you couldn't supplant what you already had, you could just
Right.
add to what you had.
Because we already
We
had
can't,
it.
and they will only
Okay, so
fund
it's
if you
not
have
just
one
that it's the
school.
person, it's how many resource officers
We
you
already
have.
had
Okay,
one.
One per building.
I get, okay.
One per building.
And so, if I understand, we'll have 6 total.
Yes.
We had 7 last year. Okay, now,
No,
Did I hear Eddie s- did I hear Eddie say-
I have 7 in place.
Right, and I know that Herbie had that conversation with the sheriff whenever before he hired the last one, and said, I really don't think that we need to hire that last officer because Shady's gonna be closing next year. We can't have but one officer per building, so, but
So-
he hired someone anyway.
so do we still need this one? I'm assuming that'd be 2 on the hill? Is
There
that,
would be one at the middle school and high school either way,
There's
so that would
already
be
in
3.
there.
that's in the grant?
If he
No,
keeps
that's
that officer.
from the original agreements. The, but here's the thing, they're
Already
talking
in
6,
place.
but I've got 7 in this budget.
But we can't pay but for 5 out of that grant, and the school system has budgeted for 1.
So
But
that's
he
six.
knew that we could not pay for that officer.
Where is that officer being paid for, Russell? Do you know? Is it being paid from,
Is that
From-
part of the
That's part of the,
$48,000?
this is making sense now, that's part of that 48,000. Because if that's the case, then we're funding,
An officer and a half,
Yeah.
basically.
exactly what we're doing.
what about officer?
It's all coming together, just literally.
Now it's beginning to make better sense. And the sheriff approved the personnel. That was part of the requirement I did this year with the budget request.
Huh? Uh,
But that is what, 2 road deputies last year.
Mm-hmm.
Did we add those last year? We didn't add
That's right.
the jail staff.
So no wonder y'all had a question. We understand.
Yeah, well, it's kind of concerning, you know. I'm all for SRO officer. I think it's a great program, but, you know, there's a whole lot of responsibility when you got to face 18,000 people that you work for, just to wipe,
And
raise
honestly,
their taxes.
it would make it easier if you keep me in the loop with this, then I can backtrace on my side. But see, you're giving me information I wasn't aware of. Because no one had shared officer costs with me, and then the fact that I figured out that we've got 7 programs, but you're only going to use 6. So that's a question that we got to go back and ask the sheriff, what are you going to do with that 7th officer, which I'm not going to give the name of the last one in.
So we've talked in circles all the way around this, but going back to the fact that Angie says there's still money that hasn't been drawn out yet, I'm going to assume, unless you tell me different, than the amount of money she has is about what we need to get through July.
I'm only drawing
June.
down what is related to those 6 officers. I'm not getting into this that I'm not going there, because at the end of the day, I am responsible if that money did not come from where it was supposed to come from.
They're all SRO officers.
They are all SRO officers, but Mark is not considered to be an SRO right now. He's with
Right,
the sheriff.
we're not talking about
And I billed you for Mark through March the 16th. We're finished with Mark till school starts, whenever it starts. You owe me for half of Michael.
I would draw Michael's salary as a full salary. He's been with us all year. It just makes sense that would be one of the SROs.
But that goes against the agreement that you originally had with this committee and with the commission.
There
The
was no
agreement,
names in the agreement.
I know that, but the position was to be split, 50-50.
And you would split the officer that costs the least amount of money.
That's, we're not getting into those things that I'm grabbing the least officer to split this and split that. Because
So-
that gets to be a logistic nightmare for me.
So what are we gonna do with this penny and a half that we're probably gonna have to raise folks'
Well, we've got
taxes?
a
How we
question for the sheriff, what he's doing with that 7th SRO.
Well, I'm not done with this other question. What's gonna happen to the grant money that's still
Goes
sitting
back
there?
to the
It's
state.
gone.
We don't get to roll it
That's-
over so much.
How much is there, Angie? Do you know how many
Do you want
dollars?
me to go look? And
Yes,
I can tell
please.
you exactly how
Yeah.
much has been drawn.
And Russell could have an idea of what you're owed, and I think we can redirect the other.
To fund the police, we won't have to worry about it.
True. That's about $3 million right there. I won't go into that. That's,
That'll be funded up.
Reckon we'll do fund the prison too
Turn them all out.
there.
And see, guys, what happens a lot of times, you all talk to Eddie, and that information never gets relayed to this side. And that's where the confusion happens.
so I'm kind of confused. So we have total 7 SRO officers. You're paying for 1. She wrote the grant for 5,
We're paying for 1.5.
1.5.
You're paying for a half, and then the grant's paying for 5.
That was the old.
So that makes 7.
That's 6.5, right? That's 6.5.
Well, 7 if
Till
You're
the
paying
end of
for
them,
1.5?
but that's still
We're
the
paying
end
for
of
1.5.
we're
it's
paying
5
for a
and a half.
half. The
She
grant
wrote the
pays
grant
for
for the
5.
But
We
what
should-
Angie was saying was she was hoping that the half that you all pay and the half that we pay could be picked up by the grant.
Why, yeah, why?
Yeah, I don't know why I
new
couldn't.
grant.
Yeah,
I mean,
the new grant.
The New Year grant, yes.
Because you have 7 until the end of the year. and now
Yeah, we've got that.
Shady-
We've
now
got that
Shady
covered.
Clay. So you only got
You
spots.
think that the fact that Shady closed, that the sheriff maybe didn't take that into consideration, that he just applied for
He
the
was
same
told.
number?
He was told.
Okay.
We wouldn't need
He
that.
said he was gonna move that other one to the hill when I asked
To the
him.
middle school.
Yeah.
We
That's,
already
that
have one
was,
at the middle, we already have one at the middle school and one at the high school. That was,
see,
and
that was
that was
what,
in addition to having the 5 at every elementary
So,
school.
so you got Mountain City, Road Creek, and Laurel, high school,
So,
and Dutch. So we got 6.
so we're gonna be overstaffed in that program. Are we?
You have 7.
Because we won't need, we'll only need 6.
You only
Fill
need
up
6.
the jail.
We would pick up one, the grant.
Freddie,
would
that's
pick
been
up 5,
unplugged.
And there might be
A bottle of
excess
water.
costs that you all have to pick up.
I think Tina would sell you a bottle of water there, Fred.
How much money you got?
What is
Half, a half an SRO.
We're not gonna be overstaffed though. That officer's gonna be somewhere else, in my opinion.
I'm sorry?
We're not gonna be overstaffed. That officer's gonna be somewhere else.
Yeah.
I billed you all for roughly $95,000.
Serena should have dropped down half of it.
When did she get it?
You just did it about 3 weeks or so ago.
Well,
I
no,
bet
because
she
you've reimbursed me, and it was 90, the 5 or the 6 elementary officers was like 95,000.
Because you told me the ones that you were still going to have to pay for June.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, if it was 95, is that the first invoice that?
That's the only
Well-
invoice we've gotten, and it was like 95.
Yeah,
Half
but-
of it, I think half of it's sitting there.
There it is, I mean, there's 175,000, so subtract 95, and that's 80,000.
basically what we're saying is you got one officer that you're looking at that we're not counting. So there's an extra officer in there for you that we know we're
But
not.
there's still $80-some thousand that's sitting there, is what I can't get past
And
that.
if we were billed quarterly, we're supposed to be, we're supposed to be drawing it down quarterly. But then we would be able to keep an eye on that throughout the year to see if we're kind of getting close to.
So, I mean, I guess, I don't understand the legalities or maybe even the ethics that goes into this, but I don't think the state intends to give you grant money to have it sent back.
No, they don't like you to
They
send it
don't.
back. They want it to be used.
And in a typical year where everybody was in place from the time that school started, then most of that money, if not all of it, would have been used. But school started in August, and we're still putting SROs in place in January. So we've got a gap that we're trying to close here.
So can we?
So you're saying that you're not taking that money because they're basically county officers, not SROs because of the shutdown? Is that kind of what?
Well, no, the elementary ones that are in the grant, they're still billable through June 30th. The only officer that's not is Mark, and he's been ours since March 17th, which was the day after school closed.
But Eddie had enough money in his budget to cover that.
To cover that, we account for that.
We had that conversation. It didn't-
We
didn't-
account for that.
We didn't amend any money. We didn't change any money. Eddie said he had enough.
Well, there's
We
the-
can't get that money covered, like Russell said, we didn't harm the January
I mean,
on
I
that.
do feel like that they would approve
They
that
have the state
because
approving
we
that
have
for
money
the full
sitting
year,
there.
but we
Typically
didn't harm
not,
for the
because
full
it's
year.
supposed to.
July, right.
But
But I
this
feel
year,
certain
So there's
that
money
because
there.
We
there's
asked
so
for
much
money, but
there that bring them
Russell says, you know, we're not going
And actually, I billed them
an employee in place.
for some training.
Is there any more that we could send through on that?
I've got some expense that we've incurred now.
And that should cover what month? And that yet covers what month? June?
It's all up through, the only month we have left is June, I'm
And
assuming.
we still have 80.
No, I
We
can't,
have money.
did I bill you to the end of March or the end of,
When it was Mark, you billed us.
I billed for March through the 16th of
And
March.
Michael was, I can't, it's on the invoice. I just,
Why aren't we paid, because Mark has been working, he's done our feeding programs, he's been working the whole time, so I mean, we can pick up the cost. Is
Again,
that from Eddie?
there's no communication that tells me that.
'Cause all of our SROs
If you guys don't tell me, then I go back to the old protocol. We only bill for Mark when he's in school. Because, I sat on that side of the table when that one occurred. I mean, the thing, you've got to communicate with me. I can go back and pick up all kinds of calls, but you've got to communicate with me to tell me what your intention is. I mean, that's where I'm getting frustrated with it, is the fact you all don't communicate enough with me, and I'm the one who has the information to be able to do this.
Did you know there was a grant?
I was aware there was a grant. I wasn't aware that it was $35,000 officer
Ask
call.
questions, because I understand what you're saying, but also for them, they think that they've got this. So it's an issue of, if you know there's a grant, ask questions, because there's money there to pay.
The total is on the printout that you give us for the grant.
I think what he's saying is that like, he wasn't aware that Eddie, that.
He was going on the old
Mark.
program that Mark, when
He
he
thought-
I understand.
Yeah, he thought Mark was done when school was done.
Let's try to make sure this next year we communicate the grant to Russell, and for you all, you know what money's left there.
Yeah.
So try to bill what you can for the end of the year, get what you can.
Yeah, it looks like.
And for next year, what you're anticipating is not what we're asking, because we're asking
Yeah,
one
we've
less
got an issue that
officer
we need to
than
address,
what you all are assuming.
because I've got
that we
7
were gonna get.
officers.
Were any other of the officers besides Mark used when school was out?
All of them.
All of them?
They're
So-
under a different agreement.
Right.
yeah, but Mark does have his own little agreement, and they have a different.
Yeah.
But Mark still worked for us.
So you don't, so we don't, we don't bill you for the 5 that you have grant money for, you just pay them directly?
No, we have to get a bill. We
Okay.
are not allowed. to
They're
do
our
that.
employees.
That's just.
They're
the
not
way
really
it's-
considered our employees.
Okay.
No,
So-
they're our employees.
But that's what I'm saying, even though they were out of school, those are still eligible for that grant money to be paid through that grant money.
As
And
long as we are
the
utilizing.
state safety office encouraged us to work that out so that they could continue to work and help us in whatever capacity. They delivered meals, they made home visits, they helped us with food distribution.
So
They want
have they been billed through those months?
They've been, I believe I have billed everything through the end of April. At this point, it sounds to me like I can go back and pick up Mark's expense to cover part of this time, at least through the end of when school should have ended. And I'm still uncertain about what we do with the other half of the other officer that we pay for, part of.
So I guess the remaining question is, what are we looking at in 2021? We need to know what that number per officer is going to be for us, and, and what it is actually going to cost us to keep those
When do you
officers
think
for
you
next
would
month.
hear back about the current grant?
I mean, I honestly, I would hope by the end of the week, I don't care to
Really?
email Brenda Morris myself and just ask her.
Before we come up with the final budget though, so.
You're gonna have to find out if the sheriff's gonna keep, what he's gonna do with his extra person.
Angie can email her this.
But we also provided another one this time around, didn't we?
We did, we kind of took that, you were here last week, we took that one out.
Oh, did you? Okay.
A little
We
bit.
kind of moved that one
I was
out.
gonna say,
He asked for
there's-
two, and
there's your extra,
we didn't give him one.
but we still gave him one.
Mm-mm.
No, we didn't give him one at all, okay.
No.
You just-
That was correct.
He wanted two.
Where they get paid a lot less than
Yeah, they do get paid.
Well, like,
Okay.
road officers.
need to have a little meeting, maybe tomorrow, next day, between Russell, the mayor, sheriff, and you all and get this worked out as, what you can bill them
Yeah.
for, and
Because I need a clear understanding
right.
of what I can and
At
cannot
least
bill
get
for.
some of this grant money that's in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to leave that on the table. But we do, before we can finalize this budget, we really need to know what we're gonna be needing to put in there from the standpoint of covering those costs.
Well, it's been made pretty clear here tonight that, we're funding one too many officers. That we should be able to remove
next year.
one, is that what you understand, Russ?
Based on what I'm hearing, because I have 7 that counts the original position, the split position, and I still have 5 additional, to make 7 rather than 6.
Yeah.
And if that's what this group wants to do and recommend to the county commission, then so be it. But I'd like to know what that, I think we all need to know what that's gonna be before we start setting
And
people's
actually, I
taxes.
can probably get a hold of the sheriff and have him come.
About that.
Only thing I gotta do is go upstairs and call him.
911.
What else are we gonna try to accomplish tonight?
My hope was that we could approve these out of committee tonight to where I could get this set to run in the paper next week and present to the county commission in June, to where we could hopefully get an approval sometime here in the next 2 weeks.
So you're wanting to set the tax rate tonight, basically?
That's
Or at least
pretty,
in the committee?
Y'all's budget is kinda, it doesn't include this money for these SROs. That money's flowing through the county.
Mark's
Right.
is,
Mark's is in there, and they're half,
we have 1.5 in here.
but it's the half,
It would be a savings to
Yeah.
both.
I know y'all want to have some sort of soft approval on your budget tonight so that you guys can move forward, everything.
Nobody takes the sheriff.
yes.
Would y'all got time to stay for the sheriff
I know,
to stop by? Just call him.
I
Catch us, while we're waiting for a second, catch us up on school starting back. Where you at?
I'll give him a call.
Well, we're hoping
They'll
we can
answer.
start normally, but the commissioners sent out guidance on Monday.
I saw
Just
that.
a plan, the 40-page
Oh,
document.
yeah. I'm gonna email Brenda
I have
right
a
now.
call tomorrow, and then I have a board meeting next week that'll be like, I guess, more intense with details. One of the things they want us to do is send out a survey to parents and to staff members, how do you feel about going back to school normally? How do you feel about virtual learning? So that's the next step, is trying to create a survey.
Virtual learning's really hard in this
It is
county
very hard.
because of the, internet and because of access.
Different demographics.
Yeah.
With the CARES Act and the stimulus money that we'll be getting, it'll be about $760,000. But we're looking at probably doing a lot of Chromebooks, unemployment costs, because
Yeah.
we had a meeting 2 weeks ago, and if the staff member has the coronavirus, then they
We
don't
haven't-
use their sick leave.
We haven't had that conversation yet. I haven't heard anything.
Oh, it is.
I was-
It's
you can't
unreal.
take your sick
You
leave.
can't take your sick leave.
I know, we've had those conversations, but I haven't had a number, that $2.8 billion that the governor has. He hasn't yet said what they're gonna do with the county in our
And they
budget.
told us our allocation.
They haven't told us anything. I know they're talking about it, this week, but they haven't really said what they're gonna do. I heard we're down about, it was like $500,000 on fuel tax. I have been hearing that they're going to replace that. And then I heard that they were going to divide the monies equally based on your census numbers per county and let counties use that to plug some of these holes that we have. So that's why I'm kind of wondering about even setting the tax rate in the next week or two.
So
Like,
many
like this one, I got
unknowns.
this today from, I'm gonna show you guys this. I got from Mike Harrison, who's the president of the Mayor's Association. This is some stuff they're talking about in those legislative meetings we're having. So we really don't know yet what they're gonna do.
When talking about discussion, the county official salaries, I guess, are they talking about that mandated raise
Yeah.
that they give every year?
Yeah, that's
He's
what,
getting, together and on his way.
getting together mean,
He said he had to get dressed.
he done gone home, put
He
his,
probably didn't have his.
One thought about school starting back, I was
probably put
talking
his
to
house
the
slippers
teacher
on.
over in Carolina, it wasn't on this system. And of course, they're online and all that you're having to do.
He
I asked
said
him, I
there's
said,
not-
what percentage you think?
He says there's not one.
He said it started out about 50, and he said then when the students learned that everybody's gonna pay, he said now it's down less than 20%.
Yeah. If we have to-
That's what, when they come out and said you can't
If we
make
have to
anything
spend the
less
money,
than
we have to
you
spend the
got
money,
on
but I
March
want to
16th.
know that we have to spend the money.
That cut down
That the
by-
need is.
So, you know, you've got to look at the kids' education
Nobody else
somewhere.
on the road.
You do, and they're gonna be so behind.
I mean, I'm already calls.
And that
It's making you money.
25% that still did it was all.
While we're waiting on
the
Eddie,
parents
I
that
do
was the
have
ones
a
that
few
made that.
things that we need to cover that makes adjustments to some other budgets that we could get out of the way.
Do you want to, did you mute this?
No, we're still live.
While we're waiting on Eddie, Russell has a couple other things he wanted to discuss on some other lines of the budget.
Let me, first, let me get my thoughts together here.
I was gonna tell you about this. I'll wait on Scott sits down. The paper I gave you where they were having discussion, Mike Harrison seems to think they're gonna have more discussion about mandated officials raises. And they've had discussion on it this week.
So they may pull back on that?
He says that some counties passed a resolution they're not gonna pay them. And he said some counties already finalized their budget with that in there. And I said, what do you think's gonna be?
I thought we'd be in trouble if we.
Well, he said you would be in trouble. He said that that comptroller would find an audit finding, that you'd be charged with an audit finding. He said that some of the counties just decided they'd take it and go on. I don't know what that
They told
means.
us when we were gonna do that before,
Yeah.
that they would not approve.
They wouldn't approve the budget.
Yeah.
And
This COVID thing has opened up a lot of big can of worms.
Yeah.
you don't wanna go,
Well, everybody's getting hit with the gas tax shortage, and
Mhm.
they're probably getting sick of this these
looks
mandatory
like-
raises like we have
I'll give
been
you a
for
copy of
years.
that. It looks like for the month of May, the Sevier County is down over $5 million. This is a city and county taxes, and this is what they're, I just made.
That's how much down shortfall.
Yeah,
since-
that's city and county. He hadn't broke it out by just county. This is April by just county. And he's claiming that in counties like Johnson County, people are staying home, spending more money at home right now in our local grocery stores and Big John's or whatever. And that our taxes were up in April and May because
The
of it.
landfill must be making some money, but you can't get in there, you gotta line up.
They're seeing, some days they're seeing over 200 people a day.
The day that I went up there, I thought Monday morning,
Yeah.
nobody will be there.
Seven
There
on-
was a line
yeah.
to get in, and there was a line to get back on the scale, and there was a line in there to.
I don't know where they're getting all
People are
this
taking
stuff.
their vacation time to clean up around the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been,
I heard we were gonna pass a resolution.
they've been doing 3 loads a day, several
Yeah, they
days.
heard, they started
Two
calling.
loads to the, Bristol is
Just the threat of it's
common.
got them going,
But
huh?
they've been doing 3.
They're making some money
Lots
on
of
place
days.
there for transport.
No, I don't. They are actually self-supporting at this point, and that was our goal last year, was
Good.
to get them to the point that they were self-supporting.
Rolled 3 cents off, county bill.
That's over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we faced it off. One of the things that I do have that's new, Matthew Lewis provided me with the final numbers that he will submit to the state as far as a certified appraisal rate for this year. With the small changes that have occurred, we had originally estimated a penny to be $29,875. It actually is $29,871.11, which is a $3.91 difference as it decreases because of some of the ratio factors that were applied to the real property and some other things. So I've updated budgets to reflect this. The first one that we would have would be debt service, and it's Fund 151. You'll just have to look up in the corners till you find them. And I basically reduced the property tax in 151 from, get my act together here, from $478,000 to $477,938, which also is reflected here. And then the next would be general capital projects, which is Fund 171. There's a slight decrease with it as well.
What am I looking at here?
That's sales tax. Goes from $268,875 to $268,840. So they're nominal. The entire difference is like $856 across the board. I gave the school system their new number, and they actually brought a budget to you tonight with $336 less in property tax than what was originally proposed based off of the estimate. And then we'll leave county general to discussion here in a little bit, but then that would make those changes. I did talk to Sheila at the city, and the town council has not acted on any of the additional increase requests from the county, whether it be from the senior center, EMA, or the library. And she basically told me that the senior center was still sort of on the table, that they were still looking to see if they could help fund that. But the library, they've already recommended to keep their level of funding at the same level, which is $21,000. And I spoke with Linda, and with the fact that we're going to give a cost of living increase, I'm going to recommend that we increase our portion of the library funding, which we use sales tax to do this, by $2,584, which covers that COLA increase and the insurance increase in January. Everything else, then we actually took out, I actually decreased another $2,385 out of that budget to put it back into balance this afternoon. So the only thing that I would recommend that we do as far as our funding is to actually increase enough to be able to cover the cost of those, to cover that COLA increase for those employees.
Now, the senior centers stems from us getting Kathy another helper and those increases, and
they're already incorporated in there.
But right now, it's showing us footing the bill for all that, I guess, isn't it?
What's that?
The senior center.
As of right now, we have
not coming forth.
We've got $5,000 as a contribution from the city in this budget for the senior center, as opposed to what it was this past year.
So the city did agree to give us that?
No, they have not. They have not.
Okay.
Which I've never factored that additional increase into this budget. I'm just using the base of the 5. Technically, we could.
Kathy if they're to ask the city for the same amount the county was giving. I don't think they could. They get this.
Sheila said that the senior center is still on the table as far as trying to find the additional $5,000. They're in the same boat we are. They're just trying to balance their budget without a tax increase. Unfortunately, we're in a different situation, but.
And they may be able to do it.
And they may be able to do it.
Okay.
Which, leads us to the county general budget, and what you have in your packet is a balanced budget with the $92,000 worth of recommended cuts that we made last time, the $42,000 shift in sales tax from debt service to county general, and I used 9 cents to balance it, based on the conversation that we had last week when we left. Because it's a lot easier for me to add to it is to have to put it all in there and start taking it back out.
Rick, for your, just catch up. Russell's gone back through pretty much line by line. For us to make any substantial cuts beyond what we've got, he says it would be cutting personnel. That's kind of where we're at.
So you said 9 cents, and what did you tell me again, our, what's a penny generating based off what?
$29,871.11.
29,871.11.
You should have this sheet in.
Yeah, you should at last week's package. You should have that sheet. Yes.
9 cents just put you at 80.
9 cents at this point would give us $4,416 worth of equity.
But the raise is yet in there, the 2% raise for our employees is yet in there.
The officials increase is in there. The mid-year health insurance increase is in
Well,
there.
that's 2 months ago, because that's got my marks on it, so.
It's the one.
It's this one, right?
This is Rick.
What's the 2% cost? Is it 64,000?
$64,360.
So, you know, if we took out the officials, 30,000, and the, you're talking about
It's that what you got your hands on.
From a legal standpoint, I don't think we want to do anything with that official.
We're just talking.
You done been down that road?
Okay,
Not unless something.
We're just
passes in
kind of
the
playing
legislature
catch up for Rick.
Before they quit.
okay.
Yeah.
And
let's
one of the
make sure
things that I
all-
But
suggested
yet they'll take you to court.
and recommended was anything that we take out of this budget to establish a reserve to cover part of that.
Yeah.
And at this point, the only additional thing that's not in the reserve would be the additional, one of the correctional officers that Eddie had asked for.
Okay,
This was a request,
yep.
and then we decreased by this amount. Some of them we left alone, just 500, 900, 200, 500, and then less of that. But then you put some of this in reserve.
I will create a reserve for it.
For those elections.
Yes, like the 12,000 for the elections.
All things here for reserve.
And we added to that this officer, too, some of these are officers.
Right there, probably the jail
Yeah.
officer.
Mhm. Pull that out and put it in reserve, too.
We did one of the positions, which is roughly $30,000.
The other one, we took out of the budget.
We took completely out.
And the other one, we put in reserve.
So that at 9 cents,
Generates another
If we
$268,000.
can get this thing resolved,
that's the shortfall
we
basically.
might get
is
another penny and a half out of that, you know,
Or
depends.
we might want to leave it to that 9 and have that little cushion, and might not have to go to 12 what we was talking about. We also discussed, you know, next year's reinforcement year,
Yeah,
can't do a rate increase, we might need a little.
Well, we can, it's a bunch of other hoops that we have
talked
to
about
jump through
going
to do
12.
that.
We said we should have about $100,000 into
Well,
a cushion. to get
yeah,
us through the next year.
people are gonna blow their minds when
They-
hear about a 12% tax hike. I just wonder though, I mean,
That was 5.6% versus 4.8 for 9,
and
right?
I know they're gonna be, you know, land values go up and then the percentage that their tax is gonna go down or something, but, you know, I would think land values are going back up, but,
Your
Well-
taxes stay the same.
yeah.
I mean, technically,
You know,
with a reappraisal, as the cost of the property and the structures go up,
it's still
this-
supposed to balance to the tax rate.
the certified rate,
Yeah.
if property goes up, rates are adjusted down to where even with the new rates, with the new values, we generate the same amount of dollars
The only thing that
as we
would really
did
increase it
prior.
would be new construction, basically.
That would be the pickup. And actually, technically, with the certified rate, we sort of lose that for a year anyway.
Talked to Lisa Crowder today.
Because it's based on the January
Yeah.
1. Yeah, okay.
There's 725 Johnson County taxpayers that get tax relief. And the income is $29,860. Anybody that falls under that income, if they're 65 years old and make $29,860 or less, they get $141 to pay towards their taxes. If their taxes is less than $141, it pays all their taxes, but they get $141 toward their tax payment. If they're disabled veteran, they get like $850 of their taxable payment. So our lower income folks are getting help with their taxes. Thank you.
I wonder how much most of those taxes are.
That I don't know.
We did discuss last week also, I like to put it in figures for your taxes. $1,000, they're gonna go up $48, $48.50 or something.
Something like that.
At 9%, right?
At 9 cents, yes.
I think it's weird.
Because I think mine go up like $50, which, Mary and I waste that much going out to eat twice.
Yeah, I know, I get it.
And here's the thing, the 12 cents that was batted around roughly generates another $100,000. That is roughly what the county's portion would have been of the half-cent sales tax increase.
Yeah, right, yeah. Try that, explain that.
Yeah, I know.
too.
And what we did discuss too, it's not an expenditure problem. It's a revenue.
Oh, yeah.
problem.
It's a revenue issue.
The gas taxes hurt us bad.
And we dropped the contracted prisoner monies from 800 to about
Yes,
690.
that's the biggest hurt to this budget is that drop in contractor prisoner.
But actually, in all actuality, that money's gonna come in at about 190 low, isn't it?
Yeah.
Money, we just ain't got it coming in.
Technically, we budgeted for 690. We're gonna come in somewhere around 610, 615.
This year we budgeted for 800.
Yeah, we're at
The
800
budget we're in right now.
in the budget we're in right
So
now.
we're $190,000 short.
And we cut it 110, but in all reality, should we go the other 90,000, which would make it equalize to what we're
Have they
anticipating to
started
get
getting
this year.
state prisoners back yet?
And the Halls tax is gone now too.
It phases itself out.
So,
Cents to do the time.
We will get one additional payment that will come into this year's budget, and that's the last of the, well, we'll get a partial payment for the whole income tax, because it phases itself out December 31st of this year. But it'll be a very small amount.
which I know we can't budget that way, but I'm optimistic that our gas tax is gonna be better this year than what the
Well,
current
see,
projection is.
the gas tax has no impact to the county general
It's
budget.
just for Jeff, basically.
It is for Jeff. And also, that you mentioned that, Jeff received an updated estimate,
Mhm.
and actually using the new numbers, I was able to put 53,000 additional appropriation dollars back into his budget for next year. And he asked that I put that in highway equipment, so he's got roughly $104,000 available to him for highway equipment as opposed to 49.
12 is at least 1 year you get an injection into your fund balance. Because we gotta think about our bond rate. If that ever goes down, we're not content.
That gas tax did explain it.
What we're increasing.
Yeah.
Another one too that people don't realize,
Well,
She done it right there.
what they don't realize is that, boy, he brought the
whole crew.
He's taking me
he
in
brought
to
the real
jail.
guys here. They don't realize that the alcohol tax, the liquor tax, we don't get any of
That
that.
might be good.
Tell that city.
City and schools are split.
I mean, even the sales tax that's collected is split between the city and the schools. We collect zero. I mean, we're still collecting wholesale beer
I know you
tax.
guys-
and
A
some
lot
of
of
the-
people's
and some of the
justification
others.
for that.
I know you guys probably have already gone home mowing your yard or something, pulling weeds. Catch you guys up what we're talking about when, oh, I didn't know. Wait a minute, Scott's visiting now. Go ahead, Scott, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That hurt.
Did you get your question answered? Yeah. Well, what I was telling these folks when they brought their budget, at the end of this meeting tonight, we're probably going to have a tax increase. And so some of the conversation we're having this evening, some of the things we're talking about are going to determine what that's actually going to be. So when we got to the part of their budget and talking about grants and the SRO grants, and Russell told us that there's about $48,000 in there that the county's gonna have to figure into our deficit, which is about a penny and a half on the tax rate from what the grant they receive is to pay for these SRO officers and what the number requires to fund them for the whole year. So we got into the conversation and Angie says that she has requested grant money, $35,000 per SRO, and she's requested for 5. And my understanding is they pay for 1.5 and we pay for half. So we were just trying to understand where the $48,000 figure comes in that we're going to be
Remember,
paying.
next year, it will only be 6 officers, we only have 6 schools. So.
And I'm showing 7.
Applied for 5 positions to be paid through the SRO grant. If that happens, then the county and the school system, that split officer, we would not have to fund that position.
Is-
If they only approve us for 4, then we would have to keep that funded.
But currently, we're funding for 7
For
positions
this
is
school
what
year,
we're
we
getting
didn't have
at.
7 schools.
One way or another, either through grant money or,
Yes, Eddie, I have 7 people tagged as an SRO. Without getting to mention names, but I've got 7 positions. The original, the 50-50 split, and I still have 5 additionals. And they're saying that they're only applying for 4 additional. Well,
Gonna
Drop.
be 6 total.
there'll be 6 total. So that means I'm coming up with an extra position.
The position that you're looking at is Mark's position, I believe. You got one for Carl, Stone Creek, Mountain City, and high school, that's 5. And middle school, that's 6.
Let's see where it came from. Mark has, say, high school. He's 100%, and that's on that sheet that we made, because I got the confusion here. On that sheet,
I don't want to get into talking about names. Let me show you this.
right, the parentheses is just a breakdown of the line right above it.
well, you're gonna have to talk about names, whether Russell wants to do it or not. you're gonna have
It's
to
easier if we
about
talk
it.
about.
Their names at your place, right?
Because for Eddie and us, Mark,
We need to make sure we
Mark is
have those.
100% district.
Okay, so that's Mark, and he's
We're not
a,
adding, we're not adding.
No, Mark is ours.
so do you have him listed at high school?
Well, that's why I have them at the bottom, because I'm not sure. So like, I put them in parentheses, showing what they, so, you see what I'm saying?
No.
So like, okay, JCMS.
So let's just start at the top. Who's at Doug?
You need to ask the sheriff.
Oh, okay.
Let's get them in the conversation.
Who's on first? Let's do that. Let's
Let's
do
get
that.
them in the conversation.
Okay.
Because Russell's having an off the
Okay,
side conversation.
sure.
And we do need to have a name in there, because that's where the confusion's coming in.
But about the parentheses, you're saying that Mark, you all pay
We
100%.
pay 100, wherever Mark is, we pay for 100%.
And we will continue to.
For the
do
whole
that.
year?
That is the position that we've always
Is
had.
that a yes for the whole year?
Well,
When students
for
are
what
present.
portion we're billed for.
When
Like
students are present, is when we have more.
But see.
August to end of May.
The
Yeah, that's
original
good way to put it,
deal,
August to the end of May.
and
Yeah.
March,
And typically, that's how we bill is August to the end of May.
Right.
we got
But we're paying 100%.
Anything.
we're not going to school.
Where did they pick it?
The main problem is,
Alright,
they
let's
bill
talk
for
names.
7 when we
So
don't
it has
have
to go
6.
through.
I'm gonna-
I think.
Line.
Yeah.
Is he
Hey,
at
if
Well,
we
Russell,
get
you
another
can
10
have
hours,
to talk
that'd
to
be
Mark,
real happy.
because the issue
In the
here,
hour.
middle school?
the issue here is, between the sheriff and us, sheriff is counting Mark kind of as his extra supervisor. But what we're funded and what we're funding, Mark is an SRO, maybe the lead SRO because of his experience, he's done a good job. But that, I think, where we come in an extra person is you're looking at Mark as supervisor, yeah.
And we don't have that.
We don't have that in
funding
our
for that.
money or our budget. So that's where your extra positions come in.
Counties and everything. Here's your positions. If you want to tie the names to it, I don't know.
But we don't necessarily know who's assigned to which school. And that would help us to know.
They were, those schools, those schools, Robert Morris, Laurel is,
Laurel's who we didn't know,
We don't.
yeah, that's it.
because Justin left and we didn't know who
Yeah, Caleb. Yeah, Caleb. Caleb is,
Caleb.
Lifford.
Caleb Litters, Caleb. Caleb Lifford.
Mark.
No, Mark.
See what difference that makes
So that
anyway,
leaves
we're just
Mark
looking
will
at
have-
the amounts. Yeah. Just so you know.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I don't care.
Or you can look at it like it leaves me with all the schools.
But we don't have the
We
funding.
don't have money for it, though. That's where the extra will be.
So is that where, you think that's where the $48,000 is coming in?
And some of it,
Some of it?
some of it.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around it.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So we
mean,
just, I mean, you know,
it
we
still
don't have
wouldn't be a
money.
whole other
We'll
position.
just pull one out of that, and we'll pay for his, and one position's right around 38.
You'll pull one of them.
But what I'm getting at is,
If we don't have
And they're giving
Mark being a
35.
supervisor is not a whole nother salary.
That's
So
$18,000.
So what's, I don't
It didn't
understand
make
that.
We
sense.
got a plan there.
All right.
Because we just absorbed a vacancy. He's got a couple of vacancies. Rather than filling it, we're gonna move a person. So technically, I've got to cut somewhere around $35,000 to $36,000 out of this, because of the fact that we're gonna absorb that person over into a recent vacancy.
You guys okay with that? Betty, okay with
They're
that?
already certified, so I don't have to send nobody else.
Sheriff, you okay with that? So,
I just need to know which one. But we'll get that
I'm
later.
gonna call you tomorrow now.
Yeah,
Give us till morning, 9 o'clock.
that worked.
Sure, it's gonna get his name.
Does that solve the problem? For the 48, little penny and a half from us.
I'm gonna blame it on Nashville. So I think they got the last grant.
okay. So,
Basically, what I do is I need to cover.
we're getting close.
Well,
I
if
don't
they
understand
give
it
you
all.
a specific amount too, is that the same for all counties? Because I'm sure that would leave other counties
Yeah, you
even
think-
more short than it does
You
us.
think
It
Sullivan
is
County would have
35,000 per officer.
For
no
everybody.
matter
No
what.
matter what county you're in, yeah, they did drop the ball.
I bet that's funded for children.
They still, still one of those,
So what can we do, and the other question is to make sure that we spend all that money that we can on these officers before, you know, the end of June.
I would pull how much they've made. I would build a school system for the 5 most expensive officers we pulled out of that grant, because it does not matter which officer.
Because you've used them through the summer too.
Yeah, we have.
I mean, you're using them in food delivery and
If we
various
need them during
things,
the summer
reading
to do
books and
something, we
all
can
kinds
call
of
an
It's great
eye
to work
and
with us with
all
that.
of
yeah, I know, I
Plus,
appreciate
think what
it.
we talked about was trying to pay for their training.
If there's money left, then yes, bill us. I mean, we'll pay
Well,
it.
so they still have to go to the SRO school, which has been put on pause.
Did you have any that went? Did you pick up calls?
So that's where some of the extra money's coming from, maybe?
so training
Yeah,
is
normally
also
we can't-
a valid
Normally, we can't, you know,
expense for that grant.
we have $35,000 that we can pay for each officer. However that comes out, if that's training, if it's salary.
See, right now, we have one more that's in, or two right now that's in the academy. And then all of them have to go to the SRO school, right? None of them have been.
See, they're not giving us any because of the corona. They canceled all SRO schools. Is that something that they could bill you for and let us pay ahead of time for I know I've went to classes before that I paid.
So that,
I just got a bill for two.
Because once June 30th comes.
yeah.
That extra money's gone, we're into a new year.
It's gotta be real.
So this might be next month when they
So we
go.
could
See,
do
that's
it.
into a new year, but now, if their salary and benefits is not total at that $35,000 mark, I mean, you know, then we can pay for whatever's left of their academy out of that. It's just,
There shouldn't be much after that. That's what it is in the other bad.
I mean, we don't wanna see anybody back, we'll pay for.
Brittany says that we move on.
You know, whatever
Before we move on,
related to that, we want to-
let's go back to what we were talking about, is you guys' budget. And I think you brought this up, didn't you, Tina, about the SROs? Was that what it was? Were you the one who brought that up? Okay.
That's the number I can back out.
So Russell can get us pretty cotton picking close to $1.50 off that number there. But, so what you were gonna request from us is, let's let these guys take a minute to look at what you've given us. And you've asked for a soft approval so that you can move forward on some of the things that you need to do to get school started back up.
Yes,
So
that would be great.
take just a minute, look over these things. They have provided for us a balanced budget, and I hope your BEP money stays in the mix when when they get done. I'm hearing they might be done. Senate's about done, I think. They think they might be done on Thursday. The House is yet debating some bills that I'm hearing not going to go anywhere because the Senate's going to be closed anyway. So I look that they'll have to get the budget approved. We're thinking the end of this week maybe, or something, you think? But I hope they don't make any cuts to
Mike,
you.
if I could make one comment for
Yes, sir.
everybody, is when you look down, because you may be asked about this at some point, when we start talking about the $500 one-time bonus for our non-certified general purpose, those are our bus drivers, our janitors, our, folks like that.
Cafeteria,
Yeah, you'll see, when you look down in the 3% pay increase, it's across the board for all our employees.
right?
Those people don't make much money, so 3% doesn't mean much to them. If you look down at the total cost, it's roughly a third of what our certified employees. So what we felt like was that we needed to reward those folks and give them a bonus on top of the raise to kind of equal things out, if I can use that term, because they worked hard.
I think Michelle and I have had that conversation. When I was in school teaching, I saw some of those janitor folks that were not taking home a lot more than what they were paying for their insurance.
Exactly.
But if they have a family plan on their insurance, they were not taking home a lot of money. So I appreciate you putting that in
We
there,
went
actually. I
across
think.
the board with the 3%, but we wanted those folks to get a little
That's
bit
good.
more to equal out some extra money.
So it looks like teachers gonna get 3%.
3%.
What's a rough number of the breakdown between certified employees and non-certified employees?
Roughly, we have about 220 certified, probably 170 non-certified. And when you're talking certified, that's teachers, principals, administrators, supervisors.
Everybody?
Counselors.
What's the feeling of this budget committee about giving them a soft approval as we move forward, barring anything major happening during this COVID event and the legislature, making some crazy adjustments to the budget? But I think they're trying to cut $1 billion out of it, I think that was the number I saw that they're trying to get out of the budget. The original budget was it 39.6 billion? Right, almost 40, and they're trying to cut 1 billion out of it. And at the end of this week, they're probably gonna have that out, it looks like. But I did find out today, for the benefit of the folks on this group, the money's in there for the local government grant has made it so far. They haven't cut that out yet. So that's the grant that I wrote to try to get some money to put a roof. We're looking at a roof on the senior center building over there and some other buildings, and just doing some maintenance that we've let go for a long time. So we'll talk to y'all about that. What y'all's feeling about their budget? It's balanced. They have in place, the monies to do it.
And in your packet also is included Central Cafeteria, which is balanced, federal projects, and then the Head Start budget is the remainder of the year because they run on the calendar
Right.
cycle rather than
Mhm.
Christmas.
Any other questions for them pertaining to their budget or to SRO conversation?
And that is using 86 cents on the tax rate, which is the same as what it was last year, yes.
Just,
Any big,
go ahead.
I just go ask you, any big changes that you want to point out to us, other than the cover
There-
sheet here?
There's not. We actually went line by line and cut out like a little bit in the staff development, just some areas of that, so there's no big, textbooks increased just, to 120 because there is an adoption this year.
Yeah,
So that's, the only things are the, increases for the salary, the bonuses, and then the textbook, which is an adoption on the textbook. But in the other lines, we have gone through and cut just, little bits to,
Sort of what we've done.
yes.
Go ahead.
How are you guys on, like, say, your power bills? I know that was an issue a few years ago. Is that program helped where they're monitoring it or, I know we talked about the, changing out all the light bulbs. Freddie was chairman then. Is that, how is the power bills?
Right now, the power bill is way down.
Well, 'cause nobody's there.
Because we have no
But-
students. Otherwise, it's probably running about the same, maybe just a little bit less, no big increase, decreases.
Well, every time I get mine, they put 13 months on your bill. Mine is, without fail, higher than it was the same month last year. I mean, I don't know why that is, but it just always is. But
So
you're
the
just lucky.
program of,
Yeah, just lucky, I guess.
Mine is
what
too.
was the position called?
Oh, the energy savings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no,
it,
that's
Right.
gone.
so it
Okay,
really
that
didn't
was-
pan out for much then.
Not really.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was getting at too, if that had made an impact.
I think just changing the lights and just being a little bit more conservative on the room.
Cutting things off and,
People still are more conscious about those things.
right, because we jokingly termed her the energy Nazi.
Yeah, she did a good job.
So some things stick.
Well, the only other big change is we don't have Shady School in the budget, so those dollars we absorbed pretty basically helped us to present this budget today.
What about your employees? What did most of them come over? I'm sorry?
They either retired or absorbed. into
Came,
the-
did some
No
of
one
them
lost a
coming over?
position.
No position.
Yeah, I'm sure that was going to be the case. Any other questions?
As far as the internet stuff that you anticipate adding, is there anything new that we'll be seeing coming there,
Mentioned about the
expenditure wise?
virtual learning,
We
and the
are-
dollars that come from that.
We are doing two different types of programs. It's a virtual online academy, one that will benefit the students in Johnson County to try to keep them from going to homeschool. Because when they do go to homeschool, we lose those BEP dollars. So have them to bring them back. And then one that will be across the state, that people across the state can do. It's Connections Academy. You probably saw some commercials on TV. And that'll bring additional funding in for us as well. So.
They guarantee us a minimum amount, and we'll be, Johnson County will be the sponsor of that school for any student in Tennessee. It'll be one, the only other one is Robertson County, and they can take up to 1,500 students, and it's all online learning. And so, like you said, it's available to our students, which was one of our people of our interest. But there also is revenue that comes in because part of that dollars is attached to how many students they have. And they feel like that this year particularly, they're going to be filling up pretty quickly because a lot of people are going to be going to online. So that will bring us some revenue this next year. Hopefully a lot, maybe, but it's guaranteed to bring us a minimum.
Good. Anybody else have questions? What's the feeling of this committee about giving them a soft approval on this budget and so they can go ahead and start making plans?
I so move.
Motion by Mr. Rick Snyder to approve your budget,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Scott Mast. Is there any further questions from any member of this committee? Call the roll, please, Russell.
Evelyn Hill,
Yes.
Scott Mast,
Yes.
Freddie Phipps,
Yes.
Rick Snyder,
Yes.
Mike Taylor.
Yes. All yes, and barring any catastrophic events that should come along, I want to thank all of you for coming and taking part in this conversation. And, you know, it boils down to, we all are on the same team, and the people that elected us, I have no idea why they put us in this configuration that we're in, but we're in it. And they expect us to be responsible and frugal, I think, as we can. And I know the sheriff has been great to work with, and his guys are great. You guys are great to work with, and likewise, you bring a balanced budget. And that's all we're trying to do is you know, do the best we can for the citizens of this county. It's a tough time. You guys have had a unprecedented spring, and I don't know what you're going to do about going back this fall. So, you know, Howard, you and your group have a lot of work to do, and the sheriff in his area. Have they started bringing back state prisoners yet? Have you heard anything about that?
Still a no for a long time.
It's going to be a long time. So all of us are dealing with some really, really difficult things, and we're going to get through it, and we're going to do the best we can, and, you know, move this whole thing forward. But thank you for supplying the information. Thank you for
So let me ask you
taking
one
part.
question that you started off with, so that myself and other board members need to be prepared or know that we're not gonna have to worry about it. This penny and a half, $48,000 that the county's gonna pick up for the schools, that's kind of been eliminated now?
It's a mood issue.
I think you were out of that conversation at this point.
That's our baby.
I just wanted to know how to prepare for somebody asking us a question.
Unless you want to go back and rework yours and come back with
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
I copied you on that email.
Yeah, I did. I saw it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Thank you.
Now, where are we going now? General?
Yep.
County General? Y'all need a break? You've been here, you've been here an hour and a half or something. All right, Russell, I guess you have the floor. Thank you, gentlemen.
I think we're back down to our original
We'll
issues.
squeeze out of your yard.
You think we're going to fund the sheriff department?
Well,
Did you think we was going to be funding the sheriff department?
Well, I'll tell you what, let's try that and see how that goes for us.
That'd solve all our budget issues.
I have no problem with it. Call me and pick somebody else.
Thanks, sir.
I will say this, it's awkward the way this came out, but this is the most communication I've had about this entire process. For some reason, I'm left out of the loop.
We gotta have it.
And I'm just gonna tell you, Russell's probably gonna stomp his feet if it happens much more, and I'm gonna rattle some cages. Because at the end of the day, I'm the gatekeeper.
Sometimes you gotta rattle a cage.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, I can rattle cages.
They go through the sheriff.
And see, that's just it. Things happen there that never filter back here.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of it.
If
And
you're
if
not
you're
in the
not told-
conversation, you can't.
I
My
know
bottom
that.
line is, we can get a penny and a half out of it.
Yeah.
Well, I can easily
That's my-
remove $41,000.
That's my job, right, Freddie?
Right.
I can
Freddie
take
told me
40.
that.
I can take roughly $41,000, give or take, off of this total.
So now, you know, we're looking at, if we could take that 9, get down to 7.5, and if we had to do, and we could do 10, would look a lot better than a 12. Or you could do, you know, 9.5 or something, but, you know, it's gonna look better.
All right, before we get too much further into this, I know the Election Commission still had some issues. I'm going to unmute Sherry, and I'm assuming that is Mike Pleasant that I see that says Mike is a guest.
That might be Mike Payne. He has been on there
Okay.
also.
So we're going to
We're
find out. All right. Sherry, can you hear
Yeah,
us?
it's Mike Payne. I'm just sitting here listening.
Okay. All right. So I've got Sherry unmuted. And Brenda, I can't, because it's video only and I can't do anything for her. Sherry, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm on speaker. Okay.
Exactly what are the concerns that you all want to address to them since they're listening? And it'll be in that big It'll be in that, well, no, it's in that big budget, the 101.
This big one.
Mhm.
101.
What's the line number on that, do you know?
1500.
Okay.
Basically, last week, I made
Page
last week I made a recommendation that we could move $12,000 out of the operating budget and actually set aside into a reserve pending pending approval of this body to do that. And that money would be held for a period of 1 year in the county general budget, in the fund balance, and we would use that to cover any overages that would be related to an election, not necessarily election workers, but like, for instance, if something came down the pike and they had some additional expenses that were involved with COVID or something before the November election, that money would be available to cover those expenses. And I mean, it's basically, we're making a guarantee that, regardless of what it costs, we have to pay for an election or for 2 elections. And if it means that we move money from that reserve, or if we need more than that $12,000, then we're obligated to go to fund balance and to be able to cover those related expenses. And that's pretty well what the purpose of the reserve was, not just for the election commission, but for all those departments that would be affected by that.
So where does
That was my
reserve money
question.
show up?
Would that reserve cover any line item, as far as any line item? Election commissioners, election, like any line item?
And the answer to that would be if it's related.
Printing, anything like that?
If it's related to one of the 2 elections, then the answer will be yes.
Office supplies, okay, as long as it's,
We have to tie it that it was directly affected to the election, since that's the reason we're setting the reserve up.
well, I know in the past, we've always moved election workers' money around to the line items needed to clean up, other places.
Well, and
That was our concern.
And in the past, that has been the case, but we're not in a typical year. And that $12,000 makes a difference whether or not it's going to be 8 or 9 cents to be able to balance the budget. Because if we put the 12
Right,
cents
I'm
back,
talking if we have to
I have
use it out
nothing
of
else I can
reserve.
take out.
So if we have to take that out of reserve, we can clean up any line item in our budget with that money?
If it's related to the 2 elections. I'm putting that stipulation on it because that's the way I described of setting the reserve up, is that $12,000 would be used toward the 2 elections.
And that would come in the way of a budget amendment.
That
we
is
would
correct.
vote
It
on.
would come back to this body.
Which was the line it was in to begin with?
It was in election workers, but we could actually rearrange it if we needed more money to cover printing and station, for instance, if we have to spend money to print a paper ballot for everyone or something to that effect, that some of these unknowns, then we could use that money that's related to it. Now, that's right. As long as it's related to the election. That's
That is
the
the
purpose.
difference in the 50,000 versus the
Yes.
38,000.
Yes.
That's the reserve amount.
Since we're establishing that reserve, and what I described last week, it would be used for election-related expense. It's not a general reserve, it's an expense that we're designating for that purpose. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
That was a concern, and make sure, we can move it around.
And we can.
Any other questions about that?
She okay with that?
They're asking, are you okay with that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
They're asking if you're,
Yes,
okay.
yes, as long as, it can be moved around and other line items needed, if we get to that point.
Okay. I'm going to unmute Brenda since I can actually see a microphone now and see if she
Okay.
has anything she wants to say as well. Maybe if it'll let me. Unmute. All right,
Go ahead,
Brenda.
Russell, thank you.
Okay, can you hear us?
Mike, do you have anything? I'm good, Mike Pleasant's good,
Okay.
because we're together, so,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
All right. Share any more questions before I mute you back just to help control the noise level?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay. right, so basically, we're down to a situation that I brought a budget to you tonight that would have using 9 cents. There we go, I got it. But in the conversation that we've had, I can roughly back 40 additional $1,000 out, because what Eddie described to me was he has recently 2 new vacancies for road deputies. He's had 2 that have quit. And rather than refilling both of those with 2 new individuals, he will shift one of those SROs to one of those positions. So in essence, I can cut roughly $40,000. And also the answer to your question, a road deputy roughly costs the county between $40,000 and $42,000 a year. So $35,000 is all well good and round figure, but there is a $7,000 difference that plays into factor here.
That's everything.
That's every.
Retirement.
That's retirement. That's taxes. That is health insurance. The whole gamut.
Okay, the one other thing that I saw from Tina's paper that she brought over, if Angie gets funding for the 5, will we be able to
It's my understanding.
save anything there?
It's my understanding that she's counting that as one of the 5.
Right.
Which is the first I've heard of that. Okay. In my defense.
New info.
Yes, it's new info.
Right.
So if we save it, then that'll be
Yeah.
money that.
Well, I mean, that's
reserve
roughly
or-
$22,000 to $24,000 that we're saving and they're saving because it's reimbursable under the grant.
Then the
But we
mark-
better not figure saving it on this upcoming year's
No,
budget.
let's do
Yeah.
not.
So,
I mean, that's all well and good in theory.
But then the
And if we
mark-
save it, then that's $24,000 that we're
Mark is
putting back
already in
into the
here.
kitty. Because Mark has already
He's already
figured
in there.
into this.
in their budget. Okay.
And so that was the first that I had heard also that he's done anything related since March the 16th. I knew he helped with graduation, but that's one day. I was going to forgive that.
He read some books.
You know, here's the thing. If you don't you've got to communicate it with me for me to know, hey, we need to go back and pick this up. And it's not just from their side, it's also from our side. I mean, the sheriff's department's got some fault here as well too. The fact that they're not communicating this information to me.
I don't think we're here to lay fault or
We're not.
We're
We're
just
not.
trying to determine
But
what that number- that number's gonna be.
that's something else
So you
too.
don't break the law.
Right.
I don't want to be in a situation that we willy-nilly use an officer just because it's a higher cost for that reimbursement, because at the end of the day, I'm the one that's responsible for it.
So where are we at now?
All right, so we're right now where we're at, since I'm off my soapbox. If we take roughly, and I'm gonna just use $40,000. If I take 40,000 additional into this, then we at this point, with a 9-cent increase, have roughly a $45,000 equity surplus to this budget. We can cut that to 8 cents and still have a small equity to the budget.
What's the difference? 1 penny, I think we better look at the 9.
Or, and I'll just throw it out, if you do 10, you're adding roughly $30,000 more to that. But as it stands right now, with the moving around of this officer's position and absorbing that vacancy, we're roughly $45,000 to the positive out the gate.
So then going back to like Freddie's analogy of $1,000 of taxes, how much is that 10 cents gonna?
Well, it'd be 9 cents.
9 is 48, 4.8, $48
Yeah.
on $1,000.
About that. So we're still looking somewhere in the range between $35 and $50 more as an average for a taxpayer.
Taxes is 500, they're gonna work $24.
Yeah.
Or 25.
They're 25.
And we've got 2% raise in there.
There's still a 2% raise in the year for this
64,000,
budget.
That's about 2 pennies there. Leave it in or take it out.
Leave it in.
Okay, I'm with you. Perry says we better leave the,
We balanced this budget with the officials increase.
Officials,
My
that's
recommendation is we
$30,000.
leave it.
Okay.
Now, if we were in a situation that we were still out, then I could argue the other way. But it is balanced under the assumption that the comptroller's office will not approve this budget.
Unless the legislature
Changes the law.
your budget will not be approved by the comptroller's office.
If that
We
happens,
can't-
I'll come back.
We can't wait to see if they do that. We
And
gotta
then
do
also
something now.
also you'll get sued
Yeah, you will get sued.
by those individuals who are not
Not if the legislature changes the law.
to get that money.
Okay,
Well, at
just-
least evidently that's a conversation
Just-
according to what you
yeah,
gave
they're
us
having,
today.
they're
So,
having, just full disclosure though, I mean, I want us to have all the information thrown out here on this table when we make that decision about what we're gonna do, that,
Legally, that'd be a very bad idea.
that's advice for our attorney.
But you're the elected official. You can make a bad idea if you want to.
Well, I think as long as we
No,
just
at
keep
that point,
aggravating
What's the
them,
ground?
I mean, it's gotta change up there.
At that point, it
before we
becomes
can-
mine and your problem.
so,
We don't really wanna be the martyrs, you know,
To-
for what the legislature needs to
Or
do.
you can just move that money into your legal line item.
Now, case in point,
So,
there will be no increase next year because if state employees, the officials' raise is based on what happens the prior year with the state employee. State employees received a raise this past the fiscal year that we're in, which meant that there's an increase to the officials. But if they have pulled any kind of increase off the table, state employees will not receive a raise. Officials, this will be the last one that until we see that a year that state employees receive a raise. That's how this is based. It runs a year behind.
So the next year, they would not mandate
No.
raises for these
No,
officials.
they would not.
If they don't give their own state employees
That's correct.
raises this year.
It runs in a rear.
Okay.
so the next conversation, 9 cents, he says is about $45,000 equity. 10 cents would be about $75,000 equity for next year, going into an appraisal year.
But we had a conversation last
So what
week
do you think?
that if we start with what we figure is our bottom number, 8 or 9, then we get in full commission. If they want to put a more of a cushion, then it's a lot easier for you
To put it
to
in,
put
I
it in.
think Perry has said legally we
You
can't.
have to give them the number you're suggesting.
well, that's true, that's true.
That we have to go-
What we approve out of committee is what we've got to
So,
use.
10% or
They can throw it back to committee for you to approve it out again.
So that would put us another month though voting on it.
But you have to put a number to
Or
it.
we could do a special meeting, but we'd have to post it. and all
Yes,
that good stuff.
yes.
And that would take what? That'd take at least
Well,
2 weeks, wouldn't it?
plus, we propose one and they do something different, then we've got that expense that's gonna be related to run it in the paper, because I will have to rerun these budgets in the paper again.
10 cents would be it'd be almost a 5% increase in whatever your taxes are. So, 10 cent would give you $50 on a $1,000 tax bill. It would give you $25 on so changing, to go to 9 would be a difference of,
$42 or something.
it would be on $44 on 1,000. So it'd be a difference of $7 on a $1,000 property, roughly.
But that's per year,
Yeah.
so $5 a month.
And I get it, I know what we gotta do. I'm just thinking about that guy that's in Pleasance every morning that hollers, "Yes, man," when I walk in the door, and then he says, bounces me over that last tax hike we did, and finally I'd had enough. I was in a bad mood that morning, and I said, "Well, just how much did your taxes go up?" He looks up like this and he says, and he knew it to the penny, like $24.19 or something like that. All right, mine went up 200. I guess my taxes go up too. So he kind of shut up after that, but that's.
You got them. That's
Yep.
when you make the big bucks.
Yeah, boy, that's what I get paid for every month, ain't it?
Rick, did he move here from somewhere?
No,
He's
no.
from
Is this the
Johnson
fifth
Oh,
County.
yeah, yeah. He's a Butler boy, born and raised.
We're in the fifth year.
Knew it to
So,
the penny.
so we're in the 5th
Yep.
year that we've had an increase.
Well,
And most everybody around about us in the other counties have. had
and
it.
I know that we don't want to be in a situation to be looking at a 20 plus again. You know, at one time we were 32 and got it to 23.
Yes.
But I mean, that was a year that there were cuts that hurt.
We knew his was gonna have to eat that one on that.
Well,
contract
we've
Christmas.
been living, there for a while, we lived
That's
off
true.
our interest. And then, in fund balance, and then we've been living the last 3 years off of the fact that we've been collecting more percentage of our taxes.
Tax. And honestly, the two factors that saved us from this situation last year was moving the collection rate from 93 to 94, and we saw such dramatic decreases in the employer rates with TCRS because of the hybrid, when we instituted the hybrid form of TCRS for county employees. And unfortunately, we have nothing more that we can shift or realize other than a little bit of sales tax money to be able to offset that.
So what, and I know we can't just keep going up on our collection rates, but we're still actually collecting more than that
Yes.
94%.
Yes.
She said
So-
today, I talked to her today, and she said that through May, she collected like 95.3.
That's
And
I believe the Russell, correct me, but isn't that another factor in your bond rating
it is.
where you set your collections or?
So we have to have a higher bond if we, or is that
I
what
mean,
you're
your
saying?
bond rating is your credit score for county.
Okay.
If we're, right now, we're top.
Like AAA or
Yeah,
something
we're
like
the
that. That's what it is.
850 people.
Yeah.
If you get hit, you drop to the 700 people in your Hawkins County. So,
Now, I don't know how that will sound in the ears of the people who are listening, a 9% versus a 10 cent.
That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
And not
the,
only the people, we got to sell this to other commissioners too.
right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, because that's all they're gonna be thinking about, a lot of them, is what their constituents are gonna have to say.
Yeah. But it has been a,
All I can do is put the spin on it when it's presented.
it has been a hard year, revenues are down and I think people, and like we've already discussed, we had an opportunity on the ballot to have had a half-cent increase in sales tax. That would have probably covered the most of this.
It would have helped to cover a big portion of
Been
it.
close. And then, with the COVID
and the other
thing.
thing,
it's just
the year that we did 23, we went line by line, we cut all these line items that we couldn't cut anyway, and all that had to come out of fund balance.
They ended up.
I mean, it's, if we cut it, we just end up putting it back on the back side.
So, at least this time that's not been done, we haven't shorted line items the way that we did then.
So, what's the feeling of this commission? Is there a motion to set the tax rate at 9? An additional 9, which would make it,
$1.03 would make it
make it
214.
Yeah, with 9. No, it's not 9%. We need to make sure
It's
people
9
understand
cents,
it's
yeah.
not.
It's 9
It's
cents.
9 cents, which is like,
That moves county general from 94 cents to $1.03. General purpose school would be 86 cents. Debt service is 16 cents. General capital projects is 9 cents.
So as far as where this 9 cents will go, is it dispersed amongst those others?
Yes.
That's
It has,
that's what
okay.
That's
what you were just
he
breaking
was
down.
breaking down the.
Yes.
Okay.
And here, this may help to visually do it. Here is a scenario using $2.14.
All over, pull you up a chair.
Pull your chair up. Counselor?
Might want to see some of this.
Same here.
You hear me talk a lot of times about aggregate, what happens to the percentages. And under this scenario, we change the percentages, which in theory, the county general will collect more than because there's percentages based on prior year collections by the trustee, the clerk and master, interest and penalty. All those things are applied to what's called a percentage aggregate. And every time that we change this one way or the other, we change those aggregate amounts. And what basically happens is, we increase property tax from 94 to $1.03, which generates a little over which generates $3,076,000. but it also pulls a little bit more of that payment in lieu and some of those that are easier for me to calculate. And what happens is we pull it from the other three that are on the aggregate. Like for
You said
instance,
this was gonna bring our total tax levy up to what did you say it was?
214.
Yeah. But if you look at some of our neighbors, we're yet lower than.
yes, it's
That
still
would-
the
I know.
lowest.
It
Yeah.
cause us to be lower than.
And here's the thing, in
some
our
of the-
reality, it's 214 this coming year. We will drop back probably below $2 once we go through reappraisal and they recertify the rate.
Cause of property.
If property goes up, the rate's gonna come down. It equalizes out that we're all still paying the same, but on
Yeah.
paper, that shift occurs.
You can tell your guy you dropped his taxes 7% or 7%. And he comes back and says, wait a minute, I'm paying the same.
Yeah, reasoning was not one of his strong suits, so.
Well, you've seen where we went through and cut what we could last week, and the question was asked to Russell, is there anything else we could do? And then, you know, just start cutting positions, 200 here and 200 there, it's not gonna make no difference.
I mean, it doesn't. Because, I mean, in order to balance this, we would have to get into, you know,
The salary, the yearly salary. pretty
Yeah, I mean,
much
we're
to
talking reduction in force. I mean, we're talking about, you know, there's no easy way to do that. But we would be talking about that, you know, in some cases, we would be probably in violation of comptroller standards because you could potentially cut one person from a two-person office. I mean, that's what we're looking
Or
at.
if you remove a person from one of these subjects that you got your maintenance effort.
And that
Get
also,
your
I don't know of any areas that we are overstaffed,
Get your not so friendly lawsuits.
to tell you the truth. I don't know that we have too many people working in any office right
I
now.
always said, if you think there's too many people in the office, vote against that person and have it off. Don't tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, we didn't give anybody any money for extra positions, so.
no. And actually, in all reality, I mean, Eddie's absorbing a position
Right, so.
with existing personnel that he will never, so it's not a true vacancy anymore.
We didn't create any new positions anywhere. We adjusted Dustin.
Other than that, and that's already factored into this.
Well,
I guess my opinion is, you know, I would rather keep it at 9 cents and even though we're not guaranteed it, you know, assume that we're still gonna get a good rate of return on our tax percentage that gets paid and maybe even, you know, have something come in that we're not expecting. We usually, I mean, we're conservative on our budgets usually, but we do usually end up with more rather than less at the end of the year, you know. I mean,
We do, and a lot of times what we actually put back, we're just simply putting back the fund balance that we pulled and spent.
Right.
yeah.
you have any idea what the fund balance is gonna look like?
I have no idea at this point.
Are you making that in the form of a motion
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
that we set the tax at a 214? Is that what you want to hear, or with the 9-cent increase?
We'll do 214 and then I'll read them back off.
Okay.
And that's basically what we were proposing, only without knowing we were gonna save $40,000 roughly
Yes.
with the resource officer.
Before,
So,
that would only brought you a little bit above start. Now it puts you a
Right,
lot
exactly, and
nicer
now we got a
position.
little cushion basically by
If
holding it
that
the
goes to
same.
fund balance, that helps your bond rating. And for next year, we do a reappraisal, so we do not want to raise taxes during that reappraisal.
I've heard a motion from Mr. Rick Snyder. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Scott Mast. Now, discussion or questions?
Discussion is, I don't see that we have any other choice.
Yep.
And it's better than 12.
Yeah.
Or 15?
Yeah.
You know, in the beginning, we've had this conversation, wrestling, I thought all along.
We were thinking it was gonna be 15.
11 to balance, we thought, 11 to 12, just to break even, but, you know, we're able to work through some things and with these conversations tonight. It's not ever easy to make these kind of decisions. Any other questions? You have a comment?
Sometimes you have to have a hard conversation.
Sometimes you have to have them. Hearing
Paid
no,
off,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
and it paid off this time,
Well, yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
$40,000.
Or maybe even 60 if this,
Yeah, could be.
if that works, it may be, instead of 40,
It could be,
60.
yeah, I mean, if we can,
If we can bill part of Mark's time, is that what you're saying?
no,
That-
if they
50-50.
absorb that 50/50 officer into
They're
one
willing-
of
they're
willing to
these
do
state
that,
funded
too.
positions.
Right, yeah.
But again, we can't bank on that at this point.
Hearing no other discussion or questions, go ahead and call the roll, please, Russell.
All right, I'm just going to almost repeat this again. You're approving the fiscal year 2021 property tax levy as follows. County General, $1.03, which is a 9-cent increase. General Purpose School at 86 cents. Debt Service at 16 cents. General Capital Projects at 9 cents, for a total of $2.14, which is a 9-cent increase from the $2.05 that it currently is. With that being said, you ready to call the roll?
Think so?
Evelyn Hill,
Yes.
Scott Mast,
Yes.
Freddie Phipps,
Yes.
Rick Snyder,
Yes.
Mike Taylor.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're halfway there. Now, we need to approve these budgets out of committee tonight. And what's going to happen with that, I will actually start the process in the morning of preparing the general fund, the general purpose school fund, the debt service fund, and the highway fund are the four that we're required to publish in the paper. I will start the process of getting that ready for it to run in next week's paper, which would come out roughly either next Wednesday or Thursday. The commission meeting would be next Thursday, and at that point, we would ask to go to a recess session, and then I think it's either the 29th or the 30th, I'll have to count the days again, that we could come back and actually approve this budget. Now, we would still have
29th and 30th of
June, which would be the first time
Yeah.
ever. But we would also still need to have a regular budget committee meeting next week to deal with amendments and some of the other things that we've got to deal with year-end cleanup. Now, I currently still have one set for Tuesday. Now, I probably can't get it out of the paper at this point, but we could actually move that from Tuesday and do it on Thursday evening, or we could actually just meet Tuesday of next week at 5:15, because it'll probably take a good hour or longer to go through the amendments and some of the other stuff that we've got to do just to get ready to physically to close the year.
What y'all's feeling about that?
I'd rather do it Thursday, but you're talking, we better do it Tuesday and have a
And I
little
mean,
time.
and it could come in here and it might take us 30 minutes, but I mean,
I'm fine either way.
okay. And actually, I already have it publicized for next Tuesday. I will kill the other remaining Tuesdays, which would be next Tuesdays, the 16th, the 23rd, and the 30th. I'll actually kill those from the paper, since at this point we're not going to need them. But basically, what I need you to do is I need you to approve the following fiscal year 2020-21 budgets. And I'm going to read off revenue and expense for each of these. County General, revenue approximately $7,908,289. Expenditures of $7,863,873. Fund 115, Public Library, $78,544, both in revenue and expense. 116, which is solid waste, $568,000 respectively, both in revenue and expense. Fund 122, which is the drug fund, revenue of $9,600, expenditures of $24,000, with an estimate of using $14,400 of fund balance to balance. Fund 131, Highway Fund, $2,172,194 respectively, and you would be this would also include an increase of roughly $53,000 in revenue and appropriation. Fund 141, General Purpose School, revenue of $17,828,948. Expenditures of $17,905,286, with them using $76,338 of fund balance to balance. Fund 143, Central Cafeteria Fund, $1,440,000 respectively in revenue and expense. Fund 145, which is other special education, or what we refer to as Head Start, $573,719 respectively. Excuse me. Debt Service Fund 151, revenue of $1,082,640, expenditures of $1,072,450, making roughly $10,190 in equity to fund balance. Fund 171, General Capital Projects, revenue of $958,412, expenditures of $961,763, using $3,351 of fund balance to balance. And Fund 172, which is Community Development or Industrial Development Board, $150,000 worth of revenue, $61,500 worth of expense, with an estimated $88,500 going to fund balance. Any questions? That's a mouthful.
So do you want to have a motion to approve those collectively?
Yes, if you would please approve those collectively.
I make a motion to approve those funds collectively out of committee.
Motion made by Mr. Scott Mast. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Ms. Evelyn Hill. Is there any questions for Russell pertaining to those numbers? Of course, you're going to print those out and give us a
Yes.
copy of all that.
And actually, next Tuesday, my goal will be is to actually hand you the inspection copies of the budgets that will be presented to the commission on Thursday. I hope to have those ready by Tuesday.
We have a motion and a second. Hearing no discussion or any further questions, will you call the roll, please, Russell?
Evelyn Hill,
Yes.
Scott Mast,
Yes.
Freddie Phipps,
Yes.
Rick Snyder,
Yes.
Mike Taylor.
Yes. All yes. Those budgets have been approved from this committee and will be taken before the full county commission at the proper time.
Yes.
Does that complete your presentation?
It very graciously completes my presentation.
Is there any matters that need to come before this budget committee this evening? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Snyder,
Second.
second by Ms. Evelyn Hill. We will adjourn at this time.